Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Our group will present on the topic of Bank Negara expected to tighten the monetary policy in 2022. The group members for Group 5 are Nurul Izzah, Dayang Fatin Fatihah, Tengku Dania Madhihah and Nurul Atiqah. My name is Tengku Dania Madhihah and I will start on the introduction. As for the title, which is Bank Negara expected to tighten monetary policy in 2022, what is monetary policy? Monetary policy is a collection of rules through which government authorities frequently influence the pace and direction of overall economic activity, which includes not only the amount of aggregate output and employment, but also the general rate at which prices grow or fall. Monetary policy can be expansionary or contractionary. Expansionary is where the federal bank will increase the money supply in the economy, while contractionary is where the federal bank will decrease the money supply in the economy. Bank Negara Malaysia, the Malaysian Central Bank, was established on January 26, 1959 by the Malaysian government. Until now, Bank Negara Malaysia is governed by the Central Bank of Malaysia at 2009. The purpose of Bank Negara Malaysia is to promote monetary and financial stability in Malaysia and to provide a sustainable environment for the country's long-term economic growth. To ensure pricing stability while also encouraging sustainable countries' growth, every central bank needs to implement their monetary policy. In Malaysia, BNM is obligated to perform the responsibility of implementing the monetary policy. The COVID-19 virus was first found in late 2019 in Wuhan, China, and has spread all around the world, affecting a wide range of parties and industries. Because of the COVID-19 spread so swiftly, the virus forced the closure of the majority of the market that caused the uncertainty of the economic situation. Today, the year 2022, most of the countries face significant inflation. We can see the overall price level increase when inflation happened. The federal bank needs to implement the contractionary monetary policy to overcome the inflation. Today, we are going to present on how both classical and Keynesian system implement contractionary monetary policy by reducing the money supply.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Dayang Fatin Fatihah Binti Zolkefle, and I will continue with the summary of the article. This article talks about the Bank Negara Malaysia is expected to tighten monetary policy in the second half of 2022. It was written by The Star, a newspaper agency, on Friday, 5 November 2021. It was mentioned in the article that Moody's Analytics assumed that the Bank Negara Malaysia, which is known as BNM, will likely drag a trigger on a rate climb within the moment half of the following year, which is the second half of 2022. This is because BNM has maintained the same overnight policy rate, which is 1.75%, same as last year, or to be exact, Chancellor since the July 2020. Other than that, it was mentioned by the analyst Dennis Chalk in the article that Malaysia has reached to the agreement to tighten Malaysia's monetary policy and monetary normalization in the second half 2022 due to the expansion wave known as inflation influences that are constantly compounding from the supply chain disturbances, rising product costs, and also unrefined oil costs, which are anticipated to surge towards the starting of the next year. This is also due to the rising vaccination rate of 75% throughout the Malaysian citizens. However, she also mentioned that caution that the sizable financial investment would bear a few of the weight as the economy rises from the COVID-19 outbreak, since Malaysia has announced its biggest budget for 2022, which is RM 321.1 billion if compared to the 2021 budget, which is RM 322.5 billion. On this side note, the GCS CIMB Securities Sendirian Berhad Economist, which is Lim Yiping, has anticipated that BNM to start rolling back its monetary policy in the second half 2022 forecast, with 225 basis point rate hikes to lead the way for the end of 2022 forecast OPR to 2.25%. She agreed that the OPR decided by the Bank Negara Malaysia was in line with their market's expectations in the midst of easing strains on the real gross domestic product because government has reduced the order in the movement restrictions.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nurul Izzah Binti Mohamad. Fatin number 2017116. So now I will continue with the monetary policy on the first system, which is the classical system. So first, the history of classical economics. The ideas are mostly dominated by Adam Smith, J. Smith, and so on, especially during the 80th and 90th century. Then, economics in 20th century also can be known as neoclassical economics. Adam Smith promotes the free market system that can bring a country to be in equilibrium state according to him. During the mercantilist period, the countries believed that their wealth depended on the amount of gold that they own. They also believe in government intervention, which is in opposite of Adam Smith's ideology. So now let's focus on the free market system, the ideology that being brought by the Adam Smith. Free market system will achieve equilibrium by its own. This system also do not believe much in money, but also only as a medium of exchange. There are three prepositions that we should follow for this classical system, which is only real factors that can affect real variables. Monetary factors can affect the real variables, but can affect the price and monetary or nominal variables only. Lastly, the free market system do not believe in government intervention. Alright, next, let's refocus to the two important assumptions to derive the aggregate supply curve, which we'll be using in the classical model. The two, firstly, is the price level and wages are fully flexible, and the second one, there are perfect information in this classical system. Then, let's move to the relation of classical model and monetary policy. The classical economics are only depending on controlling the money supply only when they practice the monetary policy, since there will be no changes in other variables according to the three prepositions that I have said earlier that need to be followed in this classical system. Okay, so now let's move to the issue in the article that we can relate with this classical system. Okay, firstly, Malaysia chose to tighten the monetary policy as mentioned in the title. And the second one, this is due to the increase in price level in Malaysia due to the recovery process of COVID-19 pandemic. So, the classical system can use the monetary policy to decrease the money supply in the economy since there will be no government intervention. So, the price level will be decreased by its own.
Classical system. The change in price level. In the classical system, change in money supply will affect the price level, while other variables remain unchanged. The relationship between the money and price level can be explained in terms of quantity theory of money. The reduction in the money supply will decrease the price level. Figure 1 shows the demand supply shift to the left from YDO to YD1 and the price decrease from PO to P1. In the quantity theory of money, the velocity of money and the total output is assumed to be constant. So, the change in the money supply will lead into a proportional change in price level. Classical system. Other variables are unaffected. In the classical system, the decrease in the money supply does not affect the other variables. The focus of the monetarists is only on managing the money supply through monetary policy. Figure 2 shows the real income, the interest rate, and the level of real economic activity remain unchanged. As in the classical system, the monetarists believe that the economy is always at full employment.
As the previous part of this paper covers the issues on the monetary policy from the point of view of the classical system, therefore, it will continue with the analysis of the monetary policy used by the Bank Negara Malaysia based on the Keynesian system. First of all, Other than classical economic theory, Keynesian economics is one of the macroeconomic theories which center on the overall investing within the economy and its impact on output, employment, and inflation. Keynesian economics was created by the British financial analyst named John Maynard Keynes amid the 1930s in an endeavor to study and understand the Great Depression of the 1930s. Keynesian economics is also known as depression economics, as the Keynes general theory was composed at the time of deep depression, not only in his native land, which is United Kingdom, but also worldwide. The famous 1936 book was written based on Keynes' understanding of events that occurred throughout the Great Depression, which Keynes believed that no one can describe it better than him, but especially by the classical economic theory, as what he penned in his book, which is the General Theory of Employment, Interest, and Money. And this book is actually the foundation of the Keynesian system. Keynesian economics is regarded as a demand side since the theory focuses on how and what changes the economy in a short run. Keynes' theory was also known as the first to enhance the separate study of economic behavior and markets based on the individuals from the study of broad national economic aggregate factors. For your information, Keynesian economics centers on utilizing government policies such as fiscal policy and monetary policy in order to manage aggregate demand in order to address or prevent economic recessions. Additionally, to cater for recession, the government should use expansionary or loose monetary policy since it will increase money supply, which then reduce interest rate and stimulate investment, as well as increase consumer spending in order to help the economy to recover. However, since the article focused more on the Bank Negara Malaysia choose to tighten monetary policy in second half 2022 due to the possibility and pressure that going to lead ways for inflation. So this paper will further discuss the contractionary monetary policy, which is known as a policy used for fighting inflation and slowing down the economy. This is in line with what was mentioned that when inflation is too high, it can be unhealthy and affect the performance of the economy. Thus, it needs government intervention to implement policy in order to protect the economy. Malaysia chose to tighten the monetary policy or use contractionary monetary policy because it is expected for the Malaysian economy to rise in the first half of 2022 because the Movement Restriction Order, which is known as MCO, was implemented since the beginning of 2022 has been lifted up. Every business sectors are allowed to operate like usual, and due to the situation, everyone is eager to accumulate revenue in order to cover their losses previous years since the COVID-19 epidemic. And some people spur excessively in consumption. So the demand for certain commodities reached its peak but low in supply, and this lead to the increase in prices. When prices continue to increase, inflation will merge if no proper precautions are taken. Hence, when the government and central bank choose to execute contractionary monetary policy that works to reduce money supply in the economy, which in turn results in the increase of interest rate. This will trigger consumers as borrowing is going to be difficult and consumers will choose to buy less and save more. When there is low demand from consumers, it will cause surplus in supply and force businesses to decrease their prices. Also, business will postpone their expansion and reduce production to stabilize their business in that situation, as well as pressure to lay off workers. Because of they choose to lay off workers, they will be going to increase in there will be going to be increase in the rate of unemployment, ultimately leave the nation in high risk towards recession. All of this can be further understood through the models used based on the key nation theories. For instance, the ISLM and aggregate demand models on increased money supply and effects afterward.
The ISLM schedules can be used to reveal that the reduction of money supply will increase the interest rate and decrease the national output level. A decrease in money supply shifts the LM curve to the left from LM0 to LM1 prime and shift the aggregate demand schedule to the left from YD0 to YD1. The decrease in the aggregate demand causes output to fall from Y0 to Y1 and the price level to fall from P0 to P1. The decrease in the price level shifts the LM schedule from LM1 prime to LM1. The shifting of the LM curve causes an increase in the interest rate from R0 to R2. Therefore, the issue of high price levels due to inflation is overcome because of the price level has decreased. The decreasing national output level causes the production by firms to decrease. The employment fell from N0 to N1 due to low employment. This situation also affects the labor market. When employment falls from N0 to N1, the money wage tends to also decrease from W0 to W1. To sum up, the issue of high price levels due to inflation can be overcome by implementing contractionary monetary policy. We can see how the reduction of money supply can help during inflation. However, too much reduction in money supply will cause recession. It is normal because that is the phase of the economic cycle. Therefore, it is very important to always control the monetary policy wisely.
Okay, so now let's continue with the Islamic perspective. From the Islamic point of view, Islam allows Muslims to live in a moderation state. It makes Muslims want to live not excessively or being inadequately in every aspect of their lives to chase the highest mercy of Allah. Allah already gave each of His creatures everything that suits for themselves, so people should be grateful despite of anything. Allah mentioned a verse that can be related with this grace for 31 times in Surah Ar-Rahman. So which of the favors of your Lord would you deny? However, sometimes people tend to forget and be careless in doing something. This situation can be seen as in the article where the inflation rate of Malaysia, which is one of the Islam's country, keep on rising nowadays. Due to Allah's command to live in moderation, Muslims need to fix this situation so that the inflation rate will not be too high. Therefore, Malaysia came up with monetary policy to fix this problem. The Malaysian government chose contractionary monetary policy as their way to reduce the inflation rate because it can help the process of reducing the money supply in the economy. Then it also will make the interest rate to rise so Muslims can avoid themselves to add their debt that is not being encouraged in Islam because it will be asked soon in the hereafter. All of these changes in the economy also will decrease the aggregate demand and consumption in a country. This will help Muslims to make a much wiser decision after doing some thinking that may be wrong sometimes. Therefore, Muslims need to follow everything that has been mentioned by Allah in His book, Al-Quran, because He knows everything that is the best for each of His servants, whether it will be sooner or later. That's all from me.
Conclusion. Monetary policy is conducted by the central bank. Monetary policy plays an important role in controlling inflation and stabilizing economic growth. The classical views monetary policy based on the quantity theory of money. Contractionary policy will result in deflation or decrease in the price level, and the other variables remain unaffected. The Keynesian involving the intervention of the government in handling contractionary monetary policy. And decrease in the money supply will rise the short-term interest rate. The change in money supply will change the price level as well as the other variables.